Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Inside Tack Show. As you know by now, this is our third show, and this is where we carry on our debrief from inside the shed. We take you on the journey as we roll through the preliminary regatta that we are on day 3 of now, one more day to go. We then have a short break, and then we get into the round robins for real. So carrying on our debrief with us today is head of sailing, Giles Scott. He was on show 1, did a fantastic job. So we got him back, obviously.
There you go.
There you go. And trimmer pilot Bleddyn Mon, representing Welsh Wales, one of the legends of the team. Oh, I'll tell you what, you might be able to hear a bit of music and a bit of, hijinks in the marina behind us. It's definitely a Saturday night in Barcelona, chaps, isn't it? Spirits are high, it's safe to say, behind us. That's the magic of the America's Cup. Anyway, enough of that. Giles, you'll be over there later on, I'm sure. So,
yeah, right.
You're not busy this evening, are you, chap? To run through the racing today, as we know, there are 4 race days, and the racing kicked off with us against Alinghi Red Bull Racing, which we took the win in very happily. We then rolled into race 2, Giles. That was France and the USA, and that didn't actually rumble around the race course, did it?
USA had an issue with their rudder and a bit of a non-starter, unfortunately.
Okay, and then race 3 was us against the Italians, where the Italians took the point. We're going to dive into that, and then the last race of the day was the repeat. Hang on, let me get a bit of America's Cup old school here. It was a repeat of the match in 2003 where New Zealand raced Alinghi and Alinghi won that. And then it was a repeat of the match in 2007 where New Zealand and Alinghi showed down in Valencia, and they won that as well. So yeah, there you go, bit of America's Cup knowledge for you, Giles. I knew you'd love that. And New Zealand took the win. So lads, let's quickly talk through our race 1. Giles, it was a sporty one where we kind of came off the line both on starboard, traditionally both on starboard, similar speeds, headed to that sort of left-hand boundary. Sort of take us through the first upwind from that point.
Yeah, I think coming back to the start, we were in quite a nice spot with a reasonably tight leeward position, which is always quite strong. But the point at which the Swiss had to tack off was quite close to the boundary. And on that port, they were just advanced enough to have a little nibble at a luff, which led to a double tack, which the guys did really quite well, and kept the race alive. And yeah, it was well sailed and close. And from there,
and we took their transom halfway up that first beat, right, Bleds?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so we kind of got pinged into a kind of a short tack to the left boundary. But actually kind of put us in a fairly good place then to take their transom halfway up the beat, which kind of gave us the top right and came in at the window mark on.
Well, there you go. Yeah. We're rolling the pictures now, Giles, of the start. Just talk us through what we're seeing on screen, chap.
Yeah, so you've got INEOS here, jumped in front, did a nice job of defending the push, and here at this stage now it's all about trying to close down as much gauge as possible as you can to the boat to windward, really make it uncomfortable. It's a bit of a balancing act because at the same time you want to be charged and up to speed, which you can see here the gauge opens up a little bit, but the speed delta is at the right way for us with a 34-35 knot starting speed. And now it's from that point on, that's when you put the squeeze on and make life difficult for that windward boat.
And we've just looped back to the beginning of the pre-start again, Giles. We entered on port, and this is again what we did yesterday, the kind of early circle before we got down into the bottom of the box, seeing that again from the port starters all day, really.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot more of that from every team, really. It's just a nice way to burn a bit of time. The box size is actually pretty small, and at times you struggle at full speed to burn that time, and you can end up being pretty early.
Right, and Louis, just keep rolling this clip through the starts, please. If you wind it back one more clip, we'll go through that start one more time with Bleds. Bleds, you're the trimmer pilot on the starboard side of the boat, so you're working with Ben, which means for me once we come off the bottom of the start box, as we jibe here, you become fundamentally in control of the sail plan. Just tell everyone listening at home what you're looking at in this position right now as we're winding the boat up to the gun.
Yeah, kind of as Giles said previously, there's kind of 2 phases here where we're trying to just hold kind of a high slow mode to just try and close the gap. So doing everything we can with the sail plan to kind of give us that good high slow mode. But then this point here with kind of less than 10 seconds to go, it's all about trying to get the speed on and have a good charge at the line. So yeah, there's really kind of two phases to that final approach: minimising the gauge and then making sure the batteries are charged at the gun.
Right, perfect. That's a good explanation. And then Louis, if you could roll on to the next clip where, as Giles explained at the top of the show, we flicked over onto port. And this is when we were coming away from that left-hand boundary, very close. Bleds, I can see your head. You're just here above the GBR, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so this obviously was quite a close interaction. Be interesting to see where the diamonds ended up. Obviously, the Swiss kind of felt we were quite close. There was a little
Do you know if they protested?
Yeah, there was a little protest that popped up there on,
right,
on
okay.
the graphic. So it was close. It was quite a challenging lane to be kind of sailing in, and ultimately ended up as being forced out into a tack. But put off quite a nice low entry speed tack, and then again tacked off the boundary and ended up in a good place at the top.
Led round the top mark there, and you're, as that leeward trimmer, I know Ben's on the leeward side with you there, and you're the eyes and ears for the guys on the windward side to make sure we keep sailing the boat kind of as well as possible. And you're looking at you're talking them through the luffs, and if there's a board down, for example, when you come at a boundary and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, in that scenario there, most of that kind of comes from Ben. Ben will be communicating that to Dylan on the port side. But there's a lot in the setup there in terms of how we kind of put the boat in a good spot to be able to sail that high slow mode. We kind of got down as low as kind of 24, 25 knots there, so it was really quite a high push from Alinghi.
Yeah, perfect. And Giles, from that point, as you could see at the end of that clip, we led round the first windward gate and sailed cleanly from that point, but very aware that Alinghi was sailing nicely behind us, and we were in the can't make a single mistake lead point for me.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think we've seen it in almost all the races that the first leg has often been very, very tight. The first downwind has been critical, and then as soon as the second lap starts, it seems at the moment as if the leaders are able to do a reasonable job of shutting the race course down somewhat. I mean, maybe that will change as we go forward, but yeah, for sure in this race, did really well to get out of this tight spot that we're seeing here. Get to the favoured top right of the course, lead around the windward mark, and yeah, you know, we were nice and slippery downwind as well, which helps.
I'm enjoying watching this because I was on for this one and had absolutely no idea what was going on, to be honest. When we watched these clips just before the racing, I did say to you lads, we led round the first mark. Yeah,
it's good. You're keeping your head down. You're doing what you're supposed to do. Looking at that floor.
Looking at the floor, and more importantly, keeping my mouth shut, which is very rare, as we all know. Right, Louis, let's roll on to the next clip, me old China. This is race number 2. Now, this is all about the pre-start, like it was yesterday. Giles, we got a penalty here. Can you explain to the layman we entered early? Talk us through that.
Well, it's exactly here. So at 2 minutes, you've got to be outside this white line, and yeah, we're half a bowsprit, which is, you know, the bowsprit's not that long, 50, 60 centimeters or whatever, not much. And we there's a tactical aid display that gives all the helmsmen help in terms of the timing, and it does flick around somewhat, so it takes a little bit of management.
So at this point in the start, Ben and Dylan and the afterguard knew, everyone on board the boat knew they had a penalty, right?
Yeah.
So does that change how you attack the pre-start?
Well, yes and no. I mean, you've got a penalty, so if you want to have an even start, the only way to achieve that is to put a penalty on the other boat. But the way that this pre-start set up, that was highly unlikely with the positions of the yachts. So, you know, the guys just practiced executing their start, which from the point of the penalty and from this point onwards, they did a really good job of gassing the Italians here and making them a little bit late.
So talk us through that gassing. What do you mean?
So yeah, just getting into this high lead position where in these yachts from, you know, 8 through till 11, the dirty air off the back of the boat ahead is really quite a powerful tool in terms of slowing down a boat on your hammer.
Gotcha.
And yeah, in this instance, just able to make the Italians that little bit late for the line.
And the penalty is what, chap, for a penalty like entering early?
So 75 metres.
Right.
And you've got 1 minute to burn that penalty from start time.
Right, okay.
So yeah, 75 metres relative to the other boat.
And is that the same as a boundary penalty?
Yep, it's the same. Yeah, it's a 75 metre penalty as well. But there's also the penalty rule is actually quite complicated because you can't stack them past a 125 metre advantage rule. So you get one penalty, 75 metres. You get a second penalty as we did with the boundary penalty.
Yes.
That then gets capped at 125 metres.
Right, okay.
It's a rule that was put in place through discussion with actually ourselves as a challenger of record and Team New Zealand to keep the racing tight, because if you end up in a situation where one boat has, I don't know, 3 penalties for whatever reason, suddenly the game is done and the race is over. So with Richard, the chief umpire, we made the call to put that advantage rule in and cap it at 125.
And just while we're talking penalties, to round it off, what happens if it's a boat-on-boat penalty? So like a rules infringement, it's a put behind.
It's the same relative to the other yacht. So it's all relative to the other yacht.
Got it.
75 metres.
So tick the box, penalties.
Penalties, yeah. And there's plenty of nuances in there with how they stack up, the timings. If you get one, when does your minute start? Which we've actually just been discussing in a debrief just now. But in layman's terms, it's 75 metres, but you shouldn't get more than 125 metres worth.
Got it.
If you get another.
You got that, Bled?
Yeah, mate.
Because you'll be doing bits with the sails.
Let's just not get penalties.
Okay.
Stay clear of penalties.
Yeah, that's a fair shout, mate.
Yeah.
Right, Louis, let's bump on to the next clip. We've just had the super school from Giles on penalties there, which is good for me, just quietly. Oh, there we go. No more clips. Bled, today, we've had 3 days of, call it classic garbies. So 9 to 13 knots. And I had a question from Alex Mills, a good mate of mine, actually pinged me one through this morning, saying how important is the jib choice? Now, how many jibs have we got? Kind of wind range stuff. How late do we dare push that call? How important is it?
Yeah, I mean, the jib selection is super important. And actually it's one of the variables that we're able to change kind of right up until the last minute. And as a result, there's a bit of a staunch off between all the teams with about kind of 10 minutes to go until the start, where you kind of both teams will have their jibs down on deck and really waiting to the last minute to make the call on which jibs to put up in the air. So you're really kind of building the information up in your warm-up, looking at observations, kind of talking to our meteorologist, Cappy, about what he's expecting over the next kind of 15-20 minutes, and based on that you're kind of trying to decide, okay, are we going on our J2, our J3? We've got multiple codes of sails that we can choose from. But yeah, it's a super important decision, and we saw today that actually in the first race we were on a different sail code to the Alinghi, and in the second race we were on a different sail code to the Italians. So it really is an important decision. But we do everything we can to decide it as late as possible.
Because Alinghi went for the main change.
Yeah,
right.
That's another one. So we've got multiple codes of mainsail as well, and actually Alinghi decided to sacrifice some of their warm-up time, having gone out there on a smaller mainsail, to go for a bigger mainsail before the race. So that was kind of impressive to see, and I'm sure we'll be seeing more of that over the coming month.
It's kind of, we often refer back to Formula One world, don't we? And for me, it's kind of like having 2 sets of tyres right next to the car with the guy with the wheel gun ready to go. And it's all about who blinks first and how much you're willing to risk to put that tyre on as late as possible. And is it a race winner, race loser if you're on the wrong jib, do you think?
Yeah, no, it definitely could be. I think in a close race between kind of 2 very similar teams, the jib selection could kind of give you the edge. So
are we talking like if you're on could it be like 10 seconds and upwind or something like that? Is that the kind of numbers you think we're looking at if you're on the wrong sail?
I mean, if you get seriously caught out, you could be, yeah. Yeah, right. It's a tricky time, and it's obviously you're trying to gather all the information you can beforehand, and yeah, we're kind of waiting for the last minute to decide which one we put up.
Right, let's roll on. Oh, carry on, Giles. Sorry, bud.
Well, I was just going to say it's interesting with the sails that the teams are choosing, because it's becoming apparent that Team New Zealand often hedge on the smaller side,
right,
relative to competitors. Alinghi are almost always on the bigger side.
And you say bigger side, more sail area,
more sail
or
area,
depth, or
no, more sail area.
Sail area.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I was really surprised this morning to see Alinghi change to their M1, because
what we assume is their M1, obviously.
M1, M15, or not quite sure what they call it. So yeah, there's plenty of scope there, and clearly the yachts are geared very differently.
Yeah.
I mean, they all look largely the same, and to be honest, we struggle to pick the difference between someone's 3 or someone's 4. But yeah, as Bled says, there's a lot of performance in getting that call right.
Yeah. It's fascinating not only how we look internally at ourselves, but I think it gives you a real picture just how much we are trying to learn about other people's setups. Right, enough of sales. We've done penalties, we've done sales. Bleds, this is a great question actually, because we're on the second version of the AC75. You were a trimmer, a sole trimmer in Auckland 3 years ago. And the question from Gabrielle here is, how's your role changed from the last cup to this?
Yeah, I mean the boats have obviously evolved a lot over this campaign, and I'd say the biggest change has been now the way that we sail these boats kind of quite asymmetrically, in a way that we have kind of no crew across on the yacht anymore, so we do have role splits across the yacht. So that's for sure been a kind of a big change, and then obviously combining some of the kind of piloting and flight control side of things as well into the role has been a big change. So yeah, there's a lot of multitasking, and yeah, it's a different challenge, and yeah, it's good.
I like that, mate. A suitably vague answer without giving too much away. Very well practiced, very well briefed by the media team, I'd suggest. Giles, a really good question for you, and you referenced it 2 days ago, and I think Ian Williams referenced it yesterday. It is hard to get past once you're behind, and this is a really good observation from Carol. How can a boat get back in front when they end up behind in these races off the start? Like you've been a pretty tidy tactician. Like, how do you think we'll see more of that? And how do you make it happen? Or is it just because we're sailing in a Garby?
Well, I think the conditions that we've been racing in play quite a big part in that. The race course is reasonably well understood from all the teams, especially the Garby, the sea breeze that we've seen. Generally, it's right favour. It's not too shifty. There's little differences around the course, but it's not like you're racing in an offshore breeze, lots of gusts and puffs and wind shifts to play around with. And also we've seen from the yachts that although the distances from wins and losses are actually, the distance is quite big, the time isn't. And yeah, the starts are becoming such a huge part of the race, and if you get ahead, it's you're more often than not you're going to win. So I mean, the answer is, once you're behind, it's really quite hard. You just got to play the balancing act of taking risk when it's right to, and trying to sail the yacht as fast as you can, stay out of the other boat's dirty air, picking a moment to split. It's all that kind of stuff.
And that kind
tricky though.
Well, absolutely, and it leads us on to this point, a look ahead to tomorrow. So we've had 3 days of what we call classic Garby. Giles, what are we going to see tomorrow, mate? It's a bit different.
Step change,
yeah. Step change.
Yeah, so 1 metre seaway, which is going to make controlling the yachts a lot more difficult. And it will almost be a little bit more difficult because the wind's not pumping, it's 7 to 13 knots, so could be quite light, which just makes it all the more harder, especially for the Bleddys of the world. Yeah, he'll be right though.
Yeah, it's good. It'll be good. It'll be good for people watching. I guess like what we've seen the last few days have been probably quite similar to what we kind of saw in Auckland in terms of conditions. Lots of flat water sailing. Yeah. But actually, we know Barcelona is renowned for giving some waves. So tomorrow will be a good viewing.
So when we've been sat here doing bits and bobs over the last 3 months going, Barcelona is wavy, if you've watched the last 3 days, you'd be like, have a good one. Yeah. But tune in tomorrow because you're going to see the Barcelona lump, right?
Absolutely.
And I think in reference to how you're going to get boats like passing lanes. I think in 1 metre swell there's going to be probably some boat handling. It's going to push boat handling to the max, right?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. It could be pretty high on the error count tomorrow. Hopefully not from us, but yeah, there's plenty of scope for that for sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, well, I'll keep cycling, you keep moving the sails, you keep running the show like a legend, and we'll see how we get on. So that's us, race 3 tomorrow against France in light-ish breeze with a lot of lump. It will be good viewing, and we'll debrief that race tomorrow evening, and we hope that you can join us for that, and we'll see you tomorrow.